My name is David Welch. I'm coming to you today from Brothers Tech Center to show you how to correctly lower your 47 to 59 Chevy and GMC truck. Now, if you don't want to go with airbags and all that expensive stuff, this is the way to go. Now, sometimes guys will take the leaf springs out of here and they'll lower it that way. But the problem with that is these leaf springs are 50 plus years old. You take out those extra leaves and it's going to make it sloppy. How long is this spring going to last before it breaks? If we go with our drop spring here, you can see we are obviously lowering it, but this is specifically made for your truck. It's going to be safe and lower you at the same time. While you're at it, make sure you get your shackles and the rear bolt for this. All right, let me get into this and show you how we do it. So we're going to get a nice flat surface. We're going to chuck our tires. We're going to make sure we're nice and safe. We're going to get one jack in the back right here, and we're going to get one on the axle. Safety, safety. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty obvious to see what you got to do. The shock has to come off. It's usually held on by 9/16 bolts. No big deal. Your front shackle here is held on by a 9/16. You got 3/4 inch U-bolts down here, and then back here, these are about 1 inch or 1 1/8. So get some lube on those the day before, let them get greased up nice and easy, and then you can go ahead and take everything out. So I'll get the spring out first, and then I'll go ahead and get my U-bolts, and we'll get the rest. It's a little tough to see down there with the camera, so I just want to show you what this looks like. There's a Zerk fitting on here. You're going to want to take that Zerk fitting off because when it's on there, a lot of times you can't get a socket onto this. So we'll get that off, then I'll be able to go ahead and unbolt this. Now you'll notice this still has threads right here. That's because the shackle actually, or the perch that this sits on, actually has threads in it. So after you take that bolt off, you'll still need to unscrew this side right here, and you'll generally just keep unscrewing it, and these threads will help it come all the way out. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and take the front shackles out. This gets a little bit iffy. You're going to take this bolt out right here. And then when you do that, these shackles are going to be able to just pop off like this. But what you're going to want to do is you don't want to have a lot of stress pressing up on the spring. You want to have no stress at all really on it, because when you pop those off, if you had it, it's going to go bang, or it's going to drop down on you. So just get a little bit of stress off of that, and then you can just knock these off simple as this. So you see how the spring bonked down there, so you can't have too much pressure on that. Now I can get this guy out of there. We'll show you how to get the new one in. Here's your front shackle. This just comes apart like this. Little rubber piece on here to keep the grease in. We're going to take this sleeve out right here. And again, if your old sleeve's bad, it'll just go in there. We'll put a little bit of grease on this guy. We'll go ahead and screw it right on in. You want to make sure this is even on both sides so the shackle is mounted properly. So we get that like that. This guy will go on here like this. Then we will put these back on. Now, on the shackles here, I want you to notice that this bolt does not go right in the middle. It's a little bit down towards the bottom. You make sure that bottom is down next to the spring right here. So just set this on here momentarily and just lightly screw this on so that we've got everybody ready to rock and roll. Now this extra one that you have right here, what we're going to do is unscrew this from the truck and screw our new one in. Again, if the sleeve that this sits in is bad, it came with one and you can put it right in. So get this out, a little bit of grease on it, stick it back in. Okay, now this perch right here, sometimes it'll get weirded out and the bolt won't go in. So I've reamed this out a little bit, and I've gone ahead and I want to get this in, and I want to try to make sure that it goes in and threads in and tightens down and everything, because once I get my spring in there, it makes it more difficult to line up, and you don't know if you're not getting it lined up because the spring's weirded out or your perch is weirded out. So get your perch all set up first, then you're going to be a lot easier to get your spring in there. Now I want to point this guy out here, this little wedge right here. This is so that your front end's caster, is in the correct place. If you forget how it goes in, it's not that big of a deal. It's got this one little button right here, and that's going to line up with a little hole that's in there. Clean up the perch, clean this guy up. On the bottom of the spring, there's the bolt that goes through, and there's a round head on that. That round head's going to fit through this hole. It's also going to go to a hole that's in the front axle here. So make sure that this is on, and then go ahead and line up the hole. Now your U-bolts, you can get new U-bolts, but you can also use your old ones. The only thing is that this nut is going to be tightening down further than it did originally because the springs are narrower. What you're going to want to do is clean them up some. You get a nut and you just cut a groove in it, and then you can make a die out of this. You put some grease on it and you just tighten it down, and that'll clean up your threads. You tighten it down until it gets too gunked up, you back it up, you clean it off, you screw it down, and you do that until you can use all your threads so you can be sure you can tighten it up all the way when you put it together. The shorter one is going to go on the back, and the longer one's going to go on the front because it's got the perch for the spring, or the shock absorber. Another thing you want to note about this is that when you install it, you want to go ahead and install these washers like original too. So I'll get these in here, I'll tighten them up, and I'll show you my next trick. Alright, you got drop springs, you're going to need drop shocks. These shocks are gas charged, so when you cut all of this off, what's going to happen is it's going to expand on you. And so we're going to put this on before we tighten up that last bolts on the lower spring perch right here. That'll make it a little bit easier for me. Take the top and bottom off. Go ahead and slide it up in there. You got to push it on up, and then the gas charge will make it come back out. I'll go ahead and get my bolts on here basically set up. After I get everything tightened, I'll tighten my shock last, and I'll double check everything. I'll make sure that I have torqued everything to the proper pounds. Generally speaking, on the lower U-bolts, it's going to be 75 to 80 pounds of pressure. It's going to be the same on the back of the spring. And your front perch, you just need to tighten that down until the threads come through the nylon lock, and you're all set. So I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up the rest of the way with my torque wrench. When I'm tightening these, I'm not just grabbing one bolt and torquing it all the way down. I'm going to snug everybody up to about 30-40 pounds, then I'll go about 60 pounds, then I'll finish off at about 75-80. After about 200 miles, I'll check it. After 500 miles, I'll check it again because they tend to loosen up a little bit. We've come down a couple of inches. How far you drop will kind of depend on how beefy the original springs were. If they were really beefy, then you're going to drop more. If they've settled over the years, then you're going to drop a little bit less. Also, over the time of a couple of months or so here, these fronts are going to drop a little bit more as they settle in. Now, this right here is the stop that came originally on there, and I generally just leave them out. You can put it back in, or you can cut it down, or you can put different styles in there if you think you need one. But I'm just going to leave it out for now. So you can see it doesn't really take a lot of time. It's nice to lower your truck safely. You be sure and check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can check out all these other videos I'm making for you every single week to get your truck back on the road. We'll see you all there.